Let's pray and we'll get started. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for the opportunity we have to be here. We're grateful, Father, for those who are watching us online. We're thankful for their presence. We're thankful for the opportunity that gives to us. We pray your blessings upon them. Be with us, Father, as well as we study. Help us to learn, Father, and help us to really pay attention to what we learn, and then apply it to our lives, Father. Help us to realize that our lives and our Christian walk is a work in progress, and we need to continue to work at it and do the things we need to do on our end. We know that you've done what you're going to do, Father. You've saved us. You've washed us clean and brought us into a relationship with you through your Son, and we cannot honor or say thank you enough. But we pray, Father, that from our end, that we'll continue to grow and to continue to mature and continue to do the things that we need to do so that we can be the very best we can be. Thank you, Father. We honor you for today, and we honor you with our lives for what you've done for us. Bless us as we study and bless us as we worship today. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, we're going to be in chapter 9 of John. And, I'm going to read I just want to read a couple of verses. I'm going to ask you some questions, okay? So, as he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. Okay? Let's talk about the guy first. Okay? What do you know about the guy?
The man is blind.
He's blind. Okay? From birth. That means he was born blind. Is that what it says? Mm-hmm. That he was born, mine says he was born blind. Okay? What else do you know? You ever been blind? Nope. Nobody? Nope. So then we don't really know, how his life is, do we? To not ever see certain colors. To hear sounds, but not to be able to connect them with a visual reference. Right? Don't have any idea. He's learned how to navigate through life. We know he's of age. That'll come up later. We know he's of age. We know he's old enough to make his own decisions. We don't know how old exactly he is, but we know he's old enough. And so we're looking at this from this perspective of, okay, what do I know about him? Because this is going to be almost a whole chapter we're going to deal with. We're not going to get it all today. There's too much here. There's too much to talk about. So what do you know so far? He's sitting by the side of the road. Okay? What is the perception of the people passing by with Jesus? What's their perception? What is the question they ask? What do they ask?
Was it from his parents? His blindness?
Or?
Sin.
Or?
Yeah.
Did he sin or did his parents? Wait a minute. What? What? Was this supposed to have happened? When was this supposed to have happened? Before he was born? That he committed some kind of sin before he was born? Are you kidding me? The idea was that he was steeped in sin because they're going to tell Jesus that later on. You were steeped in sin from birth. That was the mindset. That was the perception that they had. And so their question is, well, who sinned? This guy? Or did his parents sin? They believed, and we'll look at that when we get later on in the chapter. We'll talk about that some. Their perception is that there was because of their scriptures out there, and one of them was in Exodus 34, where it talks about that God says, "I'll punish you and your children from the third to the fourth generation." Remember that? Said it more than once. Says it in chapter 20, and when he's listing off the first 10 commandments, he says that. He says that it's going to punish them. Okay, so their perception that maybe God's punishing the parents and using that to punish the parents because of something they've done. You ever had that perception in your life that maybe something wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have done this or this or this? Of course, all of it. And we're all very inquisitive. We all of us want to know answers to these questions of life, don't we? Any of you had those questions of life that were just bizarre? The answers that you came up with were just bizarre. You come up with all kinds of scenarios of what we want to know why things happen, don't we? We're inquisitive. I want to know, Astronomers, they looked at the heavens, they said, I want to know what's out there. I want to get there someday. I want to go. So people said they're going to build rockets and all that stuff, and they go to the moon and they want to go to Mars. Personally, I don't really care what's out there. Really, not a passion for me. I don't care. All right? There was other things in my life I wanted to know about and came up with some bizarre stuff. Well, they look at it and say, well, who's seen it? I want to know. I want to know. Give me an answer. Why is this guy blind? And look at what happened. Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. Hold up a minute. What? Wait a minute. Did you catch it? What did he say? Look at what he said.
God did it.
Huh? God did this.
Yeah.
You ever pondered on that for a minute? Just ponder on that for a minute. God created this guy blind from birth. He was born this way. So that in 40 years later, or 30 years later, whatever, he could heal this guy and show how powerful he is.
Amazing.
Does that seem fair to you? Does it seem fair to you? Nope. I'm not going to lie. It don't seem fair to me neither. I want to take you to another one. Look at John chapter 11. Look at this one. This is the story about Mary and Martha and Lazarus. Listen to this. It said, we're starting verse 1. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and his sister Martha. This Mary was whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sister sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. So we know he's got a good relationship with Lazarus. He loves Lazarus. He's sick. When he heard this, Jesus answered, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory that God's Son may be glorified through it. What? What? You ever pondered that? Is this ever what one of the scenarios you came up with when you're trying to answer questions of life? God did it.
You have to.
Huh?
You have to.
Do you think it's fair?
I don't think you win people to Christ with that.
Do what?
I don't think you win people to Christ with that attitude who have sick children,
No.
terminally ill people.
No. God did it?
Yeah.
No. I know when tragedies happen in my life and problems and things, the last thing I want you to tell me, well, God had a plan. No, you know what? I don't want to be standing at a casket and you're telling me in my other ear that God had a plan. Now maybe he did. After that's all done, I can grab a hold of that and wrap my mind around that, but not while it's happening. That is not a thing you need to come up with and give me that argument. We've all seen, I wrote, have you ever seen a person weakness or disability used for God's glory? Absolutely. We see that all the time. We see God powerfully using people in a powerful way, but here it says this guy was created blind. Now, what kind of problems did that bring in this guy's life, do you think? Can you come up with, don't look at it from your perspective of today, but from your perspective 2,000 years ago, what kind of problems would that have brought? There wasn't any social services, guys. He didn't get a government check. Not going to get, patted on the head by some politician said, oh, you're a really good guy, and here, we're going to give you pockets full of money. We're going to send you to the best doctors anywhere. There wasn't any of that stuff. So what is his life like?
He had to depend on people, and everybody knew that he was blind because they knew that he depended on them.
Okay. Do you think? Come on in, guys. Y'all are more than welcome. We're in John chapter 9. We just started, so you ain't missed much. Yep.
I kind of agree with Tim. I personally believe, because he was blind, they didn't have checks back then. He had to depend on others, but due to even their mindset, that could have even been harder because they think he sinned or a generation down the road has sinned. So they want to try to avoid him as much as possible. So that could have even made things.
Are there people in our lives today, because of their living situation or their situation in general, that we look down upon them and look down at them as second-class citizens? Absolutely. Absolutely. See any homeless person on the side of the street, and what do you automatically look at? Some of, not many, maybe not all, but most of us, what do we do? We're looking at them as there's something going on second class. Doesn't mean that's true, but that's the perception. Okay? This guy, nobody ever believed well, here's a tool that God's fixing to use. Nobody, right? They looked at it and said, who sinned? This guy
Or his parents.
or his parents? Something bad had to happen for this guy to be born blind. And God said, nope, just did it. Just did it. So that 40 years later, I can come up, walk up to him, and show how powerful I am. Charlie's laughing.
I'm just sitting there thinking, you know, if you're that guy, then when you do get healed, and then you heard Jesus say, if this God did this.
Well, they're standing. I mean, just because he's blind doesn't mean his ear, he can't hear.
No.
So he's standing there and he's listening to Jesus talk, and they're asking, who, God, you ever been talked about in a conversation, and they're talking about you, and they're not including you?
All the time.
All the time. Yeah, I don't think that's true. Not all the time. Just some of the time. But the point here is they're talking. There's nothing wrong with his hearing. Is he can't see. His hearing's probably very acute, and he hears things that normal people wouldn't hear. And so here's Jesus talking and said, nope, didn't happen that way. God made him blind. Would you be just a little bit? Just a little bit. Because you're starting to think about, what was it like when he was 5? Okay? He's blind at 5. And all the other kids are making fun of him and pushing him down and trying to make him guess who pushed him down. You think kids are any different now than they were then? Are they then than they are now? Kids are kids. People are people. You think he didn't have a great deal? There was no handicap place for him. They didn't have handicap ramps and place where he could drive his car up, or somebody could drive their car up and have a handicap sticker. Wasn't any of that stuff. Didn't have little carts that he could roll around in. At the grocery store. He was dependent on the street corner that somebody put a penny in his cup. That he would even eat that day. And this is all, he just found out that it all came from what? God did it. God did it.
For good.
What, huh?
For good.
Yeah, for good. Is he going to take it that way? We're going to see, and I'll keep bringing this back up. Man, he's going to look at this, and it's going to be powerful what's going to happen. The things he's going to say to people, he's not going to use that. He's not going to hold that. He's going to be so thankful. So thankful. I look at my own life. Go ahead, Jessica.
Well, and I would say, even going back to, is it fair? Who are we to judge what's fair?
Well,
And it's a whole perspective issue on how we look at life in all.
Most people in our lives, most people in society, they can't wrap their mind around that this is the kind of God we're dealing with. God's a God of love. He's not going to hurt anybody. He's going to save everybody. Everybody's going to go to heaven. We've heard that. That's how people think. And so they look at this and say, wait a minute, my God doesn't do this. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And some of the things that happened in our lives could have been, look at Job. You remember Job? I know when Mandy we were studying Job for a while on Friday night, and we looked at this a great deal. How come Job suffered the things he suffered? Because God allowed Satan to tear his life apart, didn't it? Took all of his family, took all of his kids, took all of his stuff, took his health, everything, but just couldn't take his life. You don't think that there was a point where Job said, I wish you'd just kill me. Just kill me. His wife told him, why don't you just curse God and die? What a support system. Just curse God and die. Well, God's been doing this. We just haven't been. You don't think God knew that Adam and Eve were going to eat that fruit in the garden?
Oh, yeah.
God's got a plan. Just because it don't fit your idea of just because what's going on in your life doesn't fit your idea, doesn't mean that you have the right to say, well, I think this is unfair. Because you know what? It's none of your business what God's doing. It's none of your business. It's none of your business how he changed your life, how he created your life. But that's hard when there's some really real problems going on in your life. You get sick. The doctor says, sorry. Or somebody else in your family gets sick, or things happen. It's very difficult sometimes to walk into a house and say, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. And the only question is, why would he allow this? Why? Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to us? Well, here's this guy, and he's going to be a great example for us of what the response should be to what's happening, even though he heard this. And I'm thinking, there's so much going on here of this guy that we don't even know because we've never been blind, so we don't know how he has to navigate through life, how he's learned how to do things that we take for granted. We take the different things. He is going here in a minute. Let's just read it. Look at what he said. Look at verse 4. It said, "As long as it's day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I'm in the world, I'm the light of the world." He said, while I'm here, we're going to do stuff because it's come up really closely here in just a minute where we're not going to be able to do some of this stuff. And we find out that's exactly true. It's going to be very difficult for them once Jesus is gone and once the church is persecuted in Jerusalem and they're scattered everywhere. It's going to get way more difficult to do the things like this because they're not going to be supported because the hierarchy is going to turn on them. Okay? Now, look at the next verse. After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. All right? I'm going to stop right here. Come on in. Come on in. Go and find you a chair anywhere. Be fine. We're in John chapter 9. I want you to picture the scenario. Okay? Here's this guy. You see him? I want you to picture him in your mind. Little guy, probably had, not a lot, he's and he can't see. And everybody walking by walks by him and ignores him all the time. Every once in a while, clink, clink, somebody puts a penny in his cup, okay? And think they've done their job for the day. And Jesus walks up to him and said, "I'll show you. I'll show you why this happened 40 years ago." And he spits on the ground. You think the guy heard him spit on the ground? Think the guy heard him? What would you do if Jesus spit on the ground and made mud and started putting it on your face? Whoa, hold up. I don't know what that, but remember, this guy's blind. His sense of hearing is acute. He hears things that we don't hear, and he would have definitely heard this. And Jesus makes mud and puts it on his eyes. What's he going to do? Say, "Oh, I don't want you to do that"? He puts it on. He says, "I want you to go wash in the pool of Siloam." Now, the pool of Siloam is in the southern part of the city, probably from where he is, because Jesus has been at the temple, probably a fair distance. So we make it sound like, well, why don't you go right over there to the pool? That's not how this worked. Okay, he was probably a great distance away. He may have had somebody there that helped him, maybe a friend of his or something that helped him, and they took him down pool of Siloam. At this point, what are you going to do? If one of your kids is sick, and there's a miracle cure, some obscure place in wherever, what are you going to do? They say this will work. It's worked before. Are you going to take advantage of that? Are you going to do everything you can? What if you don't have any money? You going to sell everything you have, try to get your kid fixed? Of course. So here's this guy, and he's got maybe a friend that helps him, or maybe he's got the stick, and he knows where the pool of Siloam is. He knows where that is, so he knows how to get there. Because remember, he's been blind for a long time. He's learned how to navigate things that you take for granted. Turn off the lights in your house. Pitch dark, and walk through your house every night, pitch dark. And how many nights do you think you're going to bump into something? Every night, 3 times a week, 4 times a week. And you know this house, right? You're going to bump into stuff that I thought that was farther over there. I must be too far this way. He's learned how to navigate that. Okay? And now Jesus said, and he comes back seeing, what it said. His neighbors, now listen to what happens to him now. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" "Of course it is. You know good and well it is." This, your neighbors. Did they not know? What's happening now? Look what it said. He said, others said, "No, he only looks like him." But he himself insisted, "I am the man." "How then were your eyes open?" they asked. He replied, "The man they called Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash, so I went and washed, and I could see." "So where's the man?" they asked him. I don't know, because I can't see, guys. Remember, what could he not tell them? I can't give you a description. I don't know. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know where he went. when I could see, I don't know which one of them did it. Right? Because I can't see. I couldn't see. And so his neighbors, if they knew him, why are they acting like this? Why are they saying, well, this may be the guy? No, it's not the guy. Maybe it's this guy that looks like him. No, it could, maybe somebody, and they're arguing about whether it's the guy or not. And what's he doing? Tell me what you think he's doing. If you're the guy, what are you doing? What are you doing? If you're the guy, you hadn't been able to see your whole life, what are you doing?
Looking at everything.
I want to know what red looks like. You know? I want to know, what's this color? What is it? This is amazing. I love this color. What is this? And having people tell me, well, that's red. Or that's, and he smells a flower, and he gets to see a flower for the first time, and all he's ever been able to do is smell it. He wants to see what a bee looks like. A bee, buzzing around and coming up to a flower. I want to see that. I want to see where I was sitting. I want to see my cup. I want to see what a penny looks like. I want to see what a coin looks like. You see? There are things going on in his, and they're arguing about whether it's the same guy or not. Isn't that what we do, though? Don't we do the same thing? We pick up and we wrap our hands around the insignificant garbage of life and don't look at the powerful stuff right around us. We're worried about this and worried about that, and there are people around us that are dying. Okay? They are blind as they can be. They can't see, and we walk in and supposed to illuminate the room, and we're worried about how bright we are, how dim we are, whether we look like this, whether we look like that, And we're doing the same thing these folks are doing. I want to be like the guy. I want to be so impressed with what God has made and what is out there that I am in constant amazement. This thing amazes me. Because now I look back on my life and look at all the things that have happened in my life, and I wonder which one of them was things that I did on purpose, that I did, or that God knew I was going, and he was planning on using it anyway. Did he know me? He knew me for a long time. He knew me he knew me when he created me in my mother's womb. He knew me, and he had a plan for me. My mother told me when I was about 15 or 16. She said, "You're going to be a leader." She said, "You're going to lead people." Man, I was as shy as man. Yeah. No way that's going to happen. I almost failed speech. Didn't want to talk in front of people. My mother always thought, did God have a plan already? What about all the garbage that I went through, all the things that happened in our lives, in mine and George's life, before we ever became Christians? Did God know all that stuff? What about what you're going through now? You look around saying, this ain't fair. Well, maybe it's not to you, but maybe God's got a plan that you never even thought about. You think that's possible? Is it possible that God's got a plan in your life that you didn't think was possible? You didn't think anything about it, and now here God showed up, and he's got something for you to do. How many people do we know? People in my own family that are mad at God or mad at somebody in the church and decide they ain't coming to church ever again. I'm that person and are missing all of the blessings of being a part of that because they're so upset about something that somebody said or did, and instead of looking at the positive things that God is doing in people's lives. Do you believe that God can fix the problems in your life?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Do you believe that if God allowed them to happen, he's got some kind of great, powerful plan to unfold in your life?
Yes.
Does it seem fair?
Not at first.
Ask James sometime to talk to you about family and about what he's going through with his family, and ask him if it's fair. If it seems fair sometimes to what's going on in his family. Just ask him. I'm not going to tell him. I didn't get his permission. Ask him and see if he thinks it's fair sometimes of watching what's going on. We watch what's going on in the world and know that God's in control. Is he? Is he?
All the time.
It's hard to wrap our minds around it sometimes, isn't it? And to know that, hey, God's got a plan. He's unfolding a plan. Now, there are people that don't want to be a part of it. Satan didn't want to be a part of it. Job's wife evidently didn't want to be a part of it. Job's kids were out carousing, and he killed all of them at one time. All of them. In one day, he loses all of his children at one time. Ain't that something? Doesn't seem fair, does it? You go to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, back again. Cancer's back. Doesn't seem fair, does it? And we have to wrap our mind around the fact that if God's in control, if he's really in control, if he really loves me in my life, then what's going to happen is going to happen for good. It may not seem like that today. It may not seem like that tomorrow. You know, I've talked to a lot of people that were sick or had loss. You know, people that were burying children and life, and I've seen people go off the deep end. I've seen them gradually move off until they fall off the cliff because they just couldn't wrap their minds around it. I've seen people shaking their fist at God and saying, "How dare you? How dare you do this to me? How dare you? How can this be anything good?" And then watch it turn out for good. As time goes along, you watch it turn out for good. So, you know, when you look at this guy and say, what is his life like now over an hour ago? An hour ago, he's sitting in the dirt with a tin cup, rattling some coins, hoping somebody would throw him a dollar bill in there or something, right? That's where he was. Now where is he? I can get a job. I can have a family. Things could be really good in my life. What he didn't know is that God knew that all along, and for all this time he's getting him ready. You think he was getting him ready in his heart too? You think that was happening in his heart? Because how he's going to respond? He's going to respond. He's not going to be afraid to get right in the leadership's face and say, what are you talking? What? When we get to that, he's going to get right in their face. So God has been working in his life and creating things in his life. Did he have every opportunity to go, why'd you do that to me? All these years that I've been suffering and struggling in my life.
I think, Dan, we expect God. This is what we as God's people, we expect God to let us have this straight path with no bumps, no curves, to get to what we want. When that's not how God prepares us spiritually. He strengthens us and gives us wisdom by bumps, curves,
Absolutely.
dead ends.
Yeah.
You know,
and then his charge to us is consider it pure joy.
Right.
What?
Right.
What? Consider it pure joy when you fall in all these various trials and tribulations. What? He said, oh, by the way, I'll let you know that when you're tempted, I'm not going to let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. And with every one of them, I'll give you a way out. So we have to figure out, what's the difference? What's the difference here? You know, is God working, or is he just allowing things to happen? Is God, I think the biggest thing is to wrap my mind around the fact that God is always in control in his people's life. Okay? I am his child. You are his children. And he is always involved in our lives because he loves us unconditionally. Now, do I have the opportunity to walk away from him? Absolutely. He gives me that right. If I want to walk. He doesn't want me to do that, and he's working trying to keep me to do it. But sometimes we look at these things and they start to get bigger than us. And now what happens? Now I'm overwhelmed with the problem and not with the solution, who is God. God's the solution here. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what people watching us are going through. But I can promise you, somebody in this room or somebody watching us has got something going on in their life that they are struggling with, and they're walking a tightrope whether they're going to stay faithful or not, whether they're going to stay connected to God, because now they're really upset. They're really mad. They're mad about something that God's done. We had people that contacted us and said, man, I've been really mad at God. Well,
Yeah.
maybe the plan is bigger than the problem. Maybe the solution is going to be, maybe the reward is going to be so overwhelming that you never even dreamed it was possible of what could happen. I watched people grow up through trauma and trial and catastrophe that you can't even begin to imagine what it's like if it's never happened to you. And I've watched people grow up. I've watched them become better. I've watched them become more focused and more connected in how they responded afterwards. And when many people dive into a bottle, get at the end of a needle, or get the end of a gun in their mouth over it. And I've seen them just the opposite, because they looked at it and said, you know what? I don't know why. I don't know how come. Maybe I'll get a chance one day to ask. But right now, I'm going to use this for good in my life. And I'm going to become better than I was before. That's huge. That's what this guy does. This guy says, I'm not going to blame God. It is what it was. Look at where I am now. And I look at what is possible in my life now. What's possible for this guy now? What's possible for him? What about the testimonial that he's going to have? He's going to get to stand in front of God, in front of people who are in the dark. Remember what he said in verse 4? In the dark, and spread light to people. You know, we don't hear any more about it. After chapter 9, we don't hear any more about this guy. But you think his life unfolded in a positive way? You think it did?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to believe it did?
Yeah.
I want to believe it did. We don't have any evidence. We don't know. We don't know what happened to him. We know he's going to get kicked out of the synagogue, which is going to be a big deal. We'll talk about that when we get to it. He's going to get kicked out of the synagogue. And that's horrible. That's horrible for a Jew. So we're going to look at that maybe next week. We'll see that. But look at what could happen otherwise than that. Being a follower of Christ, pretty soon, this guy that just made mud and clean is going to die on a cross. You think this guy's not going to know that? They're right there next to the temple. That's where he lives. You think he's going to move out of state? Is that what you think he's going to do? He's going to stay right where he is, next to his mom and dad and his family who've been supportive of him. He's going to try to help other people. He's going to do all the things you would do. Maybe get a job. I want to get a car, get my license. I want to watch how people navigate through all of this stuff. Maybe I'll ride a bike, get a motorcycle. I'm kidding. Y'all do know that, right? Maybe I'll learn how to ride a camel. I don't know. Maybe I'll get some new shoes. I have to get a job. You see what I'm saying? His life is going to be different. How was your life before Christ?
Man,
How is it now?
beautiful.
Isn't it? You get a chance to stop and smell the things and look at the things you didn't before that were there all along and you just didn't bother. Let's move on. Did you have people in your life negative like this guy? Look at what's going to happen. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Uh-oh. Now we're in trouble. Brought him to the Pharisees. Now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man, uh-oh. Now we're really in trouble. Because he made mud on the Sabbath day. Oh my. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He put mud on my eyes, the man replied, and I washed, and now I see. Pretty simple. He made mud, I went and washed, and now I can see. Some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. He's not from God, because he doesn't keep the Sabbath. Yet he made mud out of spit, put it on his guy's eyes, and he can see. He's not from God. Do you see the solutions we come up, how bizarre they are sometimes? This is bizarre, isn't it? I'm looking, if I'm going, wait a minute. Maybe there's something wrong about the idea of the Sabbath here. Do you think that's a possibility? Maybe there's something wrong. Oh, no, that's not true. Nope, can't be. Nuh-uh. Not even on the best day is that true. I know what I know, and this is right, and we're right no matter what. And Jesus has already told them, you don't have a clue what you're talking about. You've got the Sabbath all messed up here. So he said, some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. But others asked, how can a sinner perform such signs? So they were divided. So now they got a dilemma, don't they? Now they're divided. When they turned again to the blind man, what have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened. So you tell us what you think. What do you think? The man replied, he is a prophet. He's a prophet. They still did not believe that he had been blind and received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. We'll figure this out. We'll get to the bottom of this. We'll bring his parents in here. Okay? Is this your son, they asked? Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that he now can see? We know he's our son. We know that. The parents answered, and we know he was born blind. Who better to know than who he is and what was happened to him? His parents. Okay? But how can he see now? Or who opened his eyes? We don't know. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders who already had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Messiah will be put out of the synagogue. That was why his parents said he is of age. Ask him. What was the problem with getting put out of the synagogue? What would be the problem? What do you think would be the problem with getting put out of the synagogue? Huh?
You can't make sacrifices.
Everything about your life revolved around your religion. Okay? Understand? You're enslaved by Rome. Everything that is good and holy in your life revolves around your religion. Okay? Everything. Your commerce, Your life, your children, everything revolves around religion. The synagogue was the center of your religious experience. Okay? You couldn't get in the temple. You can't go in there because only priests could go in there. Only the Levites could go in there. You could only go in the outer court. But the synagogue, you could go in and it was like a place of worship, and you could go there. But if you were ostracized from that place, you're done. Now I'm running out of time, all right? And I want to get into this more. I want to talk more about what that meant. So y'all are going to have to come back next week, and we'll pick it up next week. What happened? I just wanted you today to ponder on what life was like before you found the light of God, before you opened your eyes, and what is it like been now? And is it different? And it should have been a lot different. And if it isn't, then maybe some changes need to take place. Okay? Maybe some changes in your life need to take place. Maybe you need to start taking a hard look at that God has allowed some things to happen in my life, things to happen to get me to this place that I'm at, and I really need to look at God from a different perspective. I need to look at life from a different perspective, like this guy did. All right? We'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.